and I'll lead us off so I can introduce you today. We'll just do a short lead in, and yeah, away we go, right?
Cool.
Away we go.
Vogue.
Come
Come on, Alice. There you go.
There you go.
Hi, guys. Welcome to Galactic Explorers. Welcome back. Welcome to Galactic Explorers with myself, Daniella, and as always, the lovely and magical Dallas, my co-host. And today we have the utmost pleasure of welcoming back one of our favorite people in the world, Miss Lavette, who is a sexual trauma release specialist. That's what she does. She works on helping people not only release the trauma of sexual, in particular trauma, from the mental body, but also the physical body, working through a lot of those different avenues to help people release those past experiences and the baggage and things that go along with it so that you can move forward in life. And that's Tay's specialty. And we'll kind of be maybe, getting into something like that today. But welcome to Galactic Explorers. We have our lovely guests. And this is, of course, as you know, if you've been following us, the podcast where we take you on that joyride through the earthly, spiritual, or even an everyday topic explored with a galactic perspective. So why don't we figure out what that topic is? Miss Dallas, will you do us the honors of breaking out yon hinder bowl?
The ball. Oh, I went blurry. All right.
I know, it's funny how it does that.
I was going to say, your bowl got big.
Right. Well,
Now we got lots of topics in here.
Yeah.
I know. We've been getting a lot of people sending stuff in and going, I want to know about this. Really quick though, if you hear any shuffling, scuffling, mewling, we have 2 new kittens in the house. And they are wild and awesome. They're not really wild, but you know how kittens are. So if you hear anything in the background, apologies. That is the kittens going amok. And if they come over, maybe I'll give them their TV debut. Do you have a topic?
All right.
Go ahead.
I got the topic. And
Awesome.
of course, we were voguing, and it just makes sense with everybody. The topic is energetic sex.
Ooh.
Sounds like a lovely topic. I'm excited.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds like what made for Tay. What?
Completely.
All right. Well,
So,
energetic
yeah,
sex.
Energetic sex. That, ew.
It's a big topic.
That's like such a heavy topic. Like,
it's a big topic. There's a lot to
it. It is. It's heavy. It's huge. Like, let's think about it. Like, in
There's
the world
a lot
that
of
we live in
avenues we
today,
could go down to touch on and to try and do it in such a short amount of time.
Exactly.
But
Look,
since you're the specialist, you want to tip us off? Yeah, I was gonna say, why don't you kind of start us off with maybe some of your thoughts on the dynamics of how energetics is connected to spirituality from your perspective and your practice.
So, first things first, like, let's just put it this way. In the United States, sex is a very taboo subject.
Yeah.
So when it comes to this topic, that's why I say it's such a big topic, because you have to think about everything that you do in life as energy.
Mm-hmm.
And sexual energy within itself is already strong enough as is. Think about the way that people connect through sex. Think about how it affects you when you have sex with somebody. Mm-hmm. Not just, mentally and emotionally, but physically as well. Like, it just literally, like, it changes a lot of things about you.
Yeah.
One of the things that I can definitely say is that for a very long time, experiencing my own personal childhood sexual trauma, is that I interchanged love and sex for a very, very long time. And sometimes I didn't realize that happened for a lot of people, because you just get so used to whatever that trauma was surrounding, whether it was sexual or not. Maybe it was physical, maybe it was emotional. But you start to integrate that sort of energy with love.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that comes in after that is that way. So for me, I very much interchanged love and sex for many, 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 many moons. And it wasn't until I became an adult, I'm like maybe like late 20s, that I realized like, oh snap, these are not interchangeable at all.
No.
These
No.
are not interchangeable at all. And I think that people really don't understand like how much it changes your energy. You know, the more like let's just get it completely, you know, out there. Like nobody ever has said like, oh well, that's probably not true. There are many people who think
The majority
that, like,
of people,
that having
98%.
multiple sex partners is like bad. So like, you know, women are shamed for having multiple sex partners where men are like, oh, it's like a trophy, right? Unless like you're like a female sex worker, then it's just like, boom, I did it, it's done, and guess what? I'm liberated for it, so say something, basically. And what people don't realize is that there is still so much energy that is transferred through that. Sometimes, I mean, you have to think most people aren't even sensitive to those kind of energies. Like, just think, like, Dylas, you have your own set of energies that you're sensitive to, just like Daniella, you're sensitive to certain ones, and I'm sensitive to certain ones. But some people are just not in tune with their sexual energy to know how it actually affects
And so
them.
most people don't even realize that all of this energy is actually affecting them because they can't feel it as directly as some of the other more naturally empathic people, I guess you would say. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've definitely noticed that in different partners as you go through the timeline, that there were some where it's like I could literally do direct energy work on them in the moment and they'd feel it, they'd tingle, it'd heat up, they'd be like, ah, you know, like it, like you can interact with them directly energetically in addition to what you were already doing. And then there's some that's just, you know, like even though you are more or less applying the same energy tactic, you're just not attuned, their radio just isn't attuned to pick it up.
Right.
That doesn't mean that they're not receiving the signal, that it's not coming across their airwave, but they just aren't aware of it.
Exactly.
So it's interesting, yeah, to see the difference in people out in every day, how they don't realize that the energy, that in that particular energy, how much that's affected them over the course of their life.
Oh yeah. I mean, think about like jilted lovers and like people who do like, you know, crazy things after they've either, and you hear it mostly like, usually people are like, sex ruined my life, right? So, but how? Like,
I don't know if I've ever said that.
sex ruined this relationship? And it's just like, but how did that happen though? Like how exactly did, you know, the introduction of sex ruin a particular relationship? And you have to think it's the energies. Again, a lot of things that we don't pay attention to.
I think too, a lot of it comes from how we grew up and how, even though as a child, you don't know sex, but you kind of pick up. I know for me, I picked up on my parents' relationship. And even though their relationship wasn't the greatest, I picked up just a lot of negativity around, because I would hear the way my dad would talk about women and then how my mom would talk about herself, you know, and then it was like, I was confused of why my dad didn't respond positively to my mother and he responded more outwards. And religious. I know religion for me was a big factor in my sex life because I grew up feeling to be shameful and guilty of it. And I think
that I think is one of the biggest things. I think that is one of the biggest struggles, besides like if it's not direct sexual trauma.
Right. Yeah.
I think then it's almost like mental trauma through dogma.
Right.
Mhm.
It's
Where
kind
you're
of
mentally
like
traumatized into not embracing or exploring your own sexuality and understanding the energy that you have available to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm sure.
big time.
That is so cool. That actually gave me an idea for my program. Like,
Great.
you have to think, like, for probably about 5 years now, I've been working with women who've been through trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to think, like, there's so many different forms of trauma. Like, it's not just sexual.
Right.
It is emotional. It could be religion based. You know, you have all this shame and, you know, taintedness behind the idea of sex that it sometimes stifles the person
Mm-hmm.
who is like interested in having sex, or like they're interested
Right.
in this new dynamic of sexuality but can't get themselves out of that mind block because
Right.
of what they've been through as a kid, what they were learned, like
Right.
what they were taught.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually just gave me a really good idea for, you know, the next step, because it's not,
Great.
my program isn't just about sex. It literally is about understanding, you know, yourself after your trauma, but then also how can you heal from that? How can you, you know, find that sexuality again? How can you really start to explore,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that your sexual nature again?
Right. And that is the thing I love about what you do and why I love working with you and why we do stuff together occasionally too, is because you're not just working with like a mental, how do I say, it's like a psychiatric approach to getting people to just like saying what the trauma was and then going accepting it and then, you know, just talking it out.
Right.
It's not just that. There's an emotional component, there's the mental, there's the spiritual, there's the physical, and you, through your own work and trying to figure it out for yourself, have learned to address all those different areas, which otherwise under, I would think, more mainstream approaches don't get considered as part of the equation. And I think that that's why so many people suffer for as long as they do, because they're not addressing those equally, if not more so important aspects about dealing with traumatic experiences.
Exactly.
And even like you said, dealing with traumatic experience, even if it wasn't physical, of being mentally traumatized by the idea of something when you're a child, be it religion or, you know, whatever.
Right.
Have your parents, have their interaction with one another being like, as I remember, they were, you know, mine were going through some stuff too, buddy, and you hear it and they ain't proud of it. But it's like, you know, you can't help but pick up on that stuff as a kid and then, like you said, translate it as this is what love is supposed to look like.
Yeah, because we carry it as our own. We make it our own, and then that's why it's so
that's all we
important.
had for comparison, literally.
Right.
Either that or Disney fairy tales, and then we would go where it's like, wait, if it's not, if we can't get the fairy tale, then we must, you know, this must be the reality of what we actually can get. So getting into those abusive relationships and all that stuff is normal because that's all we saw.
Yeah.
It was either that or the fairy tale in a lot of people's cases, not everybody's, but it's interesting, like you said, where the different basis for a distorted or a skewed relationship with sexuality can come from, and the sexual energy that we all have access to. And it's not like all energy, I, you know, want to stress that it's not positive or negative. It's neutral.
Yeah.
You know, it has no, how do I say, it's like initial bias towards one side or the other. It's Switzerland. You can do, you know, like you can use it on whatever side you want.
Right.
So people do use it. I mean, and that's what you hear about, like all that crazy, scary shit where you hear about Satanists, you know, like doing all kinds of crazy things with sex magic and, you know, doing stupid shit. That's all they're doing. That's all they're doing is tapping into that same energy and just using it for a stupid ass purpose, or what we would consider a stupid ass purpose. As opposed to tapping into that same energy and having something beautiful and all mutually beneficial come from it.
Exactly.
The other thing, which is the lack of the need for power, over people in that sense, which is kind of, where that difference lies between one side and the other.
Yeah.
But it's all the same energy, regardless. So it's all the same energy. So I want to just stress to people to not be afraid of it, because you don't have to be afraid of it, because it's neutral. It's yours. You can do with it what you want, and it's neutral, so you can use it how you want.
Okay, how do you start when you work with clients? What is something that you strive to like have them focus on at the beginning of working with someone with trauma like that?
So at the beginning, first I have to kind of understand where they are, like what happened. We do like the talking. I'm more of like, instead of a therapist, it's more like a friend. Like, hey, I've been through this situation. Come talk to me and let's figure out where you are in your journey right now. Because there are some people, I just recently did a podcast where there are some people who, stuff happened to, but they didn't hold on to it as a trauma. But then there are some people who had a little bit more of an intense experience and they held on to that, as their trauma. So one of the things I try to do first is kind of like talk to them and kind of figure out what did happen with their trauma, and then what their intentions are for their healing. Because a lot of times people want to start healing, but they don't have the clarity or the steps to do so.
Right.
So finding out like what kind of trauma they've been through helps me to kind of like put a little like spin on what we need to work on. Because it's not a one size fits all. I can't just be like, okay, you went through the same sexual trauma as I did, so the process that I went through is definitely going to help for you. You have to realize that each person has their own energy channels, they have their own personalities, they have their own like situations that happened after or before. So you have to kind of put that stuff into perspective as well. And I always let people know, like, one of the things that I'm not trying to do is to quote unquote get rid of the trauma.
Right.
So what I really am looking at is moving that energy of the sexual trauma away from the areas that are causing stagnation in your life, so that you can continue. So now you can move forward with your healing,
right?
With the process of creating better relationships, whether that's romantically or platonically, and being more authentically you after the trauma.
So when you say move the energy, what does that mean in your process? When you say move the energy, because this is what we're talking about, is the energetics of sexuality. So if you're talking about if someone did have a sexual trauma, and of course that energy, I would say of course, but the majority of the time that energy is going to be centered around like the root sacral chakra areas. So when you say moving the energy, what do you mean in your practice?
So what's the way to say this? There is a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And it basically talks about how a sexual trauma, or any kind of trauma for that matter, actually stays in like an area of the body. So if you've ever heard of, I can't think of it right now, but it's like a tapping therapy, or like where they kind of like look at you and they touch a spot and then they say like, what happened here? And then then like the floodgates open up of like what happened and what, the energies that are held in that body. I can't remember what it's called.
I'm familiar, with what you're talking about. It's not it's not quite the repetitive tapping, but it's like the other type of,
It's like centering on like that specific time, place of an event that happened that's stuck there. So one of the things that I started to do was incorporate like a chakra healing type method, because sexual trauma stems and stays in the sacral chakra, which is like your center for sexuality, it's your center for creativity. What I wanted to do was help them. First, they have to understand that energy. Because think about it, if you've been through a trauma, been through a sexual trauma, you're not going to understand why you know, can't, you know, be sexual, or why you don't understand your own sexuality, or why sex scares you, or why you're, you know, some people, why you're so liberated from, you know, with sex. Like, people don't understand that. So when you focus and meditate on your sacral chakra, what you're really doing is kind of like understanding and kind of like feeling that energy. Now with a sexual trauma, you have to realize, like you said, sometimes that gets stuck in the root, or the energy becomes stagnant in the root and in the sacral. So to move that energy, it is literally like opening up a dam.
Yeah.
You literally, like, you're at a position where you're like, okay, I need to get from one place to another. There's a roadblock.
So do you use like a physical process, like yoga poses, or do you do energy, like movement work to move it, or is it like meditation, visualization, breath work? Like, what do you do to move the energy?
Look, a little bit of all of it.
Yeah, it's like,
a little
I was
bit
gonna say, it's like, how do you actually get it to, in your way, like, to move? Because that's kind of what we're talking about is.
So the first thing that we do is we do start with the meditation. We do start with the sacral chakra energy healing, basically. Because first you have to understand it.
You have to be familiar with that energy in your own body and say hello and be like, oh, this is what you are. Oh, this is what I've been feeling. Oh, okay.
Right. This is what you need. This is what you have to achieve, you know, things like that. And then what we move to is we move to the physical aspect, which you can also do with the meditation, which is really cool. Yeah. So one of the things that I've actually been exploring and looking into and really enjoy for myself was the yoga. Yeah. Because you do have different positions and poses for each chakra that will help to open it up more, help energy flow. And because you have set that intention of understanding what has happened to you and understanding your sexuality and your creativity through that, then you're going to be able to, it's almost like, if you've ever, like, I'm pretty sure that both of you have done Reiki or been, you know, or had Reiki done to you. Yeah, I think you can actually with those movement meditations with yoga, you can actually feel the energy break up and actually start to move through you. So instead of it being a stagnant set of energy, you know, stuck in your forearm, all of a sudden that energy moves from there and starts to travel throughout your body. So it's almost like the trauma has cut off the connection to everything else that could,
like, the circulation, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It cut off that circuitry. And what you're doing with these movements, with the meditations, with I'm going to start incorporating into that is, you know, the chakra pole fitness. Like, what you're going to realize is that it's going to start moving that energy, and you'll start to more feel like yourself. You'll start to become one with your sexuality. Like, it is really, most people think, like, they're going to hear this and they're going to be like, oh, this sounds something that's going to be so great. I'm going to be able to do this in like one fell swoop. And I'm here to tell you.
All of us are shaking our heads going, nah, we've all done a lot of personal work. We've all done a lot of energy work. Yeah, working on, breaking through our own,
It's like, I had to start with the energetic level. I had to start at the chakra level. Yeah. And I didn't realize that my sacral chakra was so blocked.
Okay. Why it was so blocked.
And why?
Like,
exactly.
You said, it's like you got to figure out why it's blocked. So that even though you don't want to connect back to those events, because like you said, you're constantly trying to push it away, make it go away. Which is, again, why I like your approach, because you're saying, no, we're not trying to get rid of it. We're not trying to push it away. We're just trying to look at it and go, okay, what do you need to absolve? And it's not even a getting rid of. It's like more of an integration, where it's like you just
that's
part of one of your experiences on the timeline, and you go, oh, okay.
You know what? You just said that, and that really just reminded me. Look, random tangent.
Perfect.
It kind of reminded me of Dante's Inferno.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
where you can either like put this, random spirit entity, whatever, into hell, or you can absolve it. And that's really what we're looking at. Like, we are looking at this energy as something that needs to completely go away.
Right.
When in all actuality, we really just need to merge with it and understand it and really like feel it. Like,
because it is an
understand that
aspect of
this
self.
happened. Right. Understand that this happened, but also understand that this doesn't make me.
Right. It's just
Like,
it is an aspect. It's not the whole self, but it's something, at least the sexuality aspect of your physical being and spiritual being is something to be embraced and understood and, like you said, accepted as part of the whole, and not trying to drive out or negate one part or one experience because it's painful. Because like that's where, at least in my experience, is where I found the stagnation comes from, is from resisting it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Not
Nobody
wanting
wants
to
to sit
believe
and
it,
think
you
about
know, it's like not wanting to accept it for what it is or what had happened or why, or like, you know, trying to look for answers, or just trying to literally logic the fuck out of it.
it. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's an interesting take on it. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that with us, because I like that we can share the different ideas of the different ways that you can actually move the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people think it's, you know, how do I say? It's like all woo woo, for the lack of a better term. But when in reality, it's like you're
growing.
really doing something physically, holistically,
Right.
when you start
You see
doing stuff
another
like this.
part of yourself that, like you said, you push away and you push away, and we have this mindset and we're in program of, if it's not there and it doesn't exist and we move it, it
Mm-hmm.
never happened, or but we still hold that within this physical body. And when we do that spiritual movement and that energetic movement,
Mm-hmm.
then we see it, acknowledge it, accept it, integrate it, and that's growth. That's
Yeah.
growth from your physical to your energetic to spiritual, of whatever layer you're going through. And you can see it as, I had this happen, but look where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think
Thank you for growing.
exactly. And that's where I think that's one of the reasons why I call myself a trauma release guide. Like, releasing something doesn't necessarily mean getting rid of it. Like, if you go to a balloon ceremony, or if you go to like a memorial or something and they do like a balloon releasing, you're not letting go of the person that the balloon is for. What you're doing is you're letting go of the guilt, the sadness, the, troubled thoughts that you had about this person, to open up to more love and more, fulfilling things that will come your way. Releasing a trauma doesn't mean, oh, let's get rid of it 110%. No, what we are doing is we are not only forgiving ourselves for not understanding it, forgiving ourselves for quote unquote being in that situation, but what we're also doing is letting our body know that it is okay to not hold on to this anymore. It is okay to continue to move forward.
Right.
And as a release guide, like, I can go ahead and tell you, like, hey, it's done, it's released. But the guide part is really important, because now I'm walking you through the steps to be able to release it.
Right.
It's still going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling you it didn't happen. It's still going to be there. But at the same time, your life is going to change and be a little bit different, or maybe a lot of it different from how you were when you thought that this trauma was like the center of your life.
Right. Right.
And that is
one
really
thing too. Well, that is one thing too that it's important to mention, like you said, is that you can tell people all of the different ways to fix it all you want. But if they aren't ready to move it, if they feel like subconsciously somewhere in there that it still benefits them in some way, to whatever game that they're playing spiritually or whatever they're doing. Like you can't,
Girl, yes.
you can't, I mean, real quick, what did it say? It's like you can lead a hoe to water, but you can't make her think. I might cut that out. I don't know. But it's,
Can't lead a horse. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
no, you can lead a hoe to water, but you can't make her think. That's basically our job, ladies and gentlemen, is that we can lead y'all to water, but we can't make you think for yourselves. We can only present the opportunity for you to think.
It's letting go of the energy.
Because I don't know your names individually. And if you know where that's from, like, yeah, I love you guys.
Look, and this is why I like coming on this show.
This is, yeah, just get, just break it up real quick. But it's true though. And any of the work that any of us do with anybody, or ourselves, we have to, even ourselves, like we have to be ready to move it and to realize that it's like we're done letting it serve us however it was serving us, and we can integrate it into our experience in a different way, perceive it in a different way, and like you said, have growth out of it.
Yeah.
And let's see, we've got about 5 minutes left. Can you believe that?
Gosh.
So one thing I did want to have us mention with the energetics of sexuality is, especially on the growth topic, is being conscious of who your partners are. I mean, we're kind of taking a little bit of a left from where we were talking about trauma, and I guess you can kind of include it with trauma, because if you ain't paying attention, you can have a really bad time.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Find yourself back in those same situations.
Right.
Like,
so, but it's not just for the pure fact of that you might end up in a traumatic experience to be conscious, but just the idea of being conscious of who your partners are for the growth aspect of it, because you could go out and do this, have sex all you want, but are you doing it in a way and with people or persons that are actually going to uplift you and sort of add to your cup rather than be taking it away? There is that whole aspect of coming together in a mutual union, regardless of sexual preference or identity or any of that.
Right.
But there is, something to be said about that very powerful coming together in mutual divine union. Literally, it's like as close, as they say, is as close to this divine as we can get in physical reality, because we're just combining those energy frequencies to such a point that we're literally lifting ourselves into another dimensional frequency. If you're doing it with something with that growth in mind, with somebody with that, or with persons with that growth in mind. And like you said before, it could even be in a sense where you're exploring your sexuality in a physically, what people would be considered a physically very liberated sense. But if you're in an environment and are choosing partners that are also consciously aware, I mean, you could have a really fucking mind-blowing DMT almost like experience sans the drugs, because you're combining those energetic forces, because you're combining and playing with those energetic frequencies to the point where it almost becomes like an orchestra.
Exactly.
You can't see it, you can't hear it necessarily, but you can feel it. So I like wanted to maybe get your ladies' opinions on, in our closing moments here, on what you might think would be from your point of view, the most important aspect to think about and consider when it comes to the aspects of the energetics of sexuality. So like for me, it would be that whole idea of consciously choosing partners as you go through life. And this, applies if you're, if you're going to go forward and have a more stable relationship and get married and things, it's like you have to take that into consideration. Is this person going to be able to grow with you, not only, you know, to take care of the bills, but it's like, are you going to be able to cohabitate in sexual union for quite some time and build one another up, and it not just be that one-sided abusive type of situation just because you think that that's all that there is. So that would be my 2 cents. What you got, ladies?
Tay, you can go ahead.
You've been so quiet today, Dallas. Just taking it all in.
Well, this is what I'll say to that. A lot of people, and it's funny because you have to think, you see, you know, social media nowadays, so prevalent. You see a lot of people say how important sex is and things of that nature. And don't get me wrong, sex is definitely important when it comes to a relationship. I think that one thing that people are looking at is they're looking at the physical aspect of sex instead of looking at how does their sex actually make me feel, if that makes any kind of sense.
Not just physically feel. Yeah, not physically feel.
I mean, emotionally, mentally. I've had quite a few sex partners where I never actually paid attention to the mental and emotional aspect of sex. Right. And realized later why that relationship didn't work. And no, it wasn't mainly because of the sex, but it was a huge factor. That energy,
I was gonna say the sex was probably indicative of the fact that there were other underlying things that were going to go astray. Right? If your energy is not locked on.
That transfer of the sexual energy for however long it was happening, whether it was months or years, really translated into like, okay, what was it that I was really looking for in this person? What is it that they were really looking for in me? Because, you know, there's a situation now where, okay, we've had sex for, you know, 2-3 years, and now it feels like to me like that's all it ever was. So was this really beneficial for me, or was this just beneficial for the other person?
Right.
And that's the kind of things that you have to look at when it comes to the sexual energy is, where are the benefits coming from? Is it literally a mutually beneficial situation? Or is it like a, you know, somebody's taking and taking and taking? I mean, you have to think, this doesn't happen only in sexuality or during sex. It happens in all aspects. Think of all the succubi that you have in your life, all the vampires, all the, you know, people who just come and just take and take and take. It's the same with your sexual energy. Sure. Yes, protect it. Yes, be free with it, but also understand what that's going to do, not only to you, but how that's going to affect the other people around you, how that's going to affect the person you're having sex with. And I don't think a lot of people, they don't really, again, most of them are not aware. So
or they don't. The energy of the people you're having sex with affects you.
Right.
That's a big one, because it's like, yeah, okay, it may feel great, but like you said, how does it make you feel emotionally when you're done? Like, do you feel drained? Do you feel like they've taken something from you? Because that's happened. Yeah. But just, be aware of how you feel when you're done, like with the exchange, and not just have it based off the physical, because like you can miss a lot of yellow flags. Even orange and red flags.
Even red flags. Really,
I was gonna say, you can miss a lot of laundry on the field if you ain't looking.
Look, right before the red flags, you're missing
it. Look, you can miss a lot of flags if you just paid attention to that one kind of aspect. But right. That's very important. I agree. Dallas, darling.
Okay. All of that, most definitely. And I think really getting to know your body and giving yourself love. Because I know being married for 17 years and having trauma of my growing up younger, I turned to sex for the wrong reasons. And I didn't learn about what I really wanted or how I really wanted to be treated. It was just I was looking to be fulfilled and to have something that I I was looking for something.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally, the past couple years, I finally like, oh, I have to give myself love.
Mm-hmm.
I have to really know my body, know what I like, what I don't like, where my boundaries are, how I respect myself, and how my partner respects me. Because my partner, my husband, respects me,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't giving myself respect.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't giving myself love.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the most important thing, is finding love within yourself and your body and your emotions and your energy, and however you want to go through it, with all the things that you ladies said, I think is so important, along with loving
Hand in
yourself.
hand, really.
Yeah. And
You
I
know, you
feel
gotta
like,
have the self-love before you can get a hold of, half the time, before you can get a hold of a partner that will respect you, because you're not putting out that energy.
Exactly.
right.
I
And
mean,
think about it. I mean, I don't know, Dallas. I don't know you very well, but I can imagine that the respect that your husband was showing you was very foreign to you within that aspect.
I
Because it was,
didn't
yeah,
I didn't deserve I thought I don't deserve
Mhm.
you. I don't deserve you. I don't
right.
deserve this. Like, and I told him that, and he was like,
Mhm.
Are you
and
insane? That's exactly the response I got from Frank. He's like, what, are you insane?
Yeah.
right.
This guy
It's a
literally, and I'm sure Mark has essentially told you the equivalent of this, but he said it's like, I essentially want you to ask me to help you so much that you think that you're abusing me, because I want you to know that you were so unconditionally supported. I was
Mhm.
like,
oh yeah.
what?
Holy hell.
Holy fuck, what?
Right.
And then,
You're
but in that space, and you and I are so similar in that way, which is why I love doing the podcast. But it gave you the space to go, oh, wait, I do deserve to figure out what my body wants. I do deserve to figure
Mhm.
out what I like. I do deserve to actually be able to ask for it and get it,
Right.
Mhm.
and not turn to it for the wrong reasons, just to feel like I'm, it's like eating cake to fill a stomach. It's like,
Yeah.
it's essentially like emotional eating.
Yeah. But
Just,
Mhm.
it's like all that. I
yeah.
used to have a hole. And I used to tell like my husband, like, we're not together anymore. But I used to tell him, he used to be like, well, you're just trying to fill that space with someone else. And I was like, let me tell you something. I said, you know how there's like a shit ton of potholes in Cleveland? You know that? And what
Mhm.
do they do to try to fix the potholes? They don't put asphalt in them because that's what it's made out of. No, they go and they put gravel in there. And then they put sand in there. And they're like, this should work, right? And then like
Fine.
a
Right,
month
fine.
later, the hole is back because all the gravel and the sand has been ran out, has
Kicked out.
been ran over, like there's nothing else in there. And I'm like, I cannot fill a hole that was created by someone else with another someone. You cannot do that. And
Mhm.
I think that is definitely where your self-love talk, Dallas, comes in, because it's, yes, you can sit and your husband is great. He can definitely fulfill you. He can put that, put the stuff back in that hole. However, it's gonna get depleted again because you yourself are not filling that hole. It wasn't a hole that he created. It was a hole that was created from something else. And once you start to really merge with that and understand that and bring that into yourself,
Mhm.
that is the only time that that hole can be filled. And that is so important when it comes to trauma. That is so important when it comes to creating your boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that you still have to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else is not going to do it for you. No therapist, no trauma release guide, no spiritual
No
healer, no
healer.
Reiki master,
Right.
no
None of
chakra
that.
cleanser, no one.
We
Is
can't do
going
it for
to be
you. We
able to do
literally, physically cannot do it for you. You can kind of authorize us to help you with it, and we can tweak a few things, but we literally cannot do it for you.
exactly.
We
And
can
I
give
feel
you
like
the
that is
permission to do it for yourself.
right. And that makes, I mean, that's why that aspect, Alice, is so
Yeah.
important. Like, you really do have to start to show yourself that love. You really have to start to show yourself what it is that you deserve. because that is going to, let's just face it, like that could have hindered you and your husband's relationship had you not realized that that is something that you had to do.
And it did for a while, but I have to say that as we've cleared, I have cleared, sex is the most amazing thing that I've ever experienced. Like, it's changed.
That is great.
So it's worth doing the work. It's hard. It took years, and there's still a lot to go through.
Of course.
But once you, like you said, Tay, like once you really like tune into it and recognize it and let it go, you're making room for something new and for something that you actually want. You're giving yourself the permission slip to go, I want this.
Yep.
And I'm going to fucking have it. Thank you very much. And guess what? I have some of the best in my life.
See, there you go.
Thank you. Amen. Hallelujah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all of that.
Say it again for the people in the back.
Yeah, can we hear it again for the people in the back? Y'all, listen to that again. Roll that back to 30 seconds, go click, 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 and listen to that again. No, that is so important. And you're right. It seems like you're going up an insane hill that you can't, that you're never going to get through. But at some point, like you break over the top of that and you see the fucking horizon. And then, then when you can get there, your partner comes to meet you and you're like, oh, okay, now this is what they were talking about. Okay, now, wait a minute.
Talk about the floodgates opening.
This is some legit Kama Sutra shit up in here. Energy exchange, all kinds of, yes.
Right.
It can be so good. And yeah, not just physically, but it, all kinds
mentally,
of
emotionally, spiritually. Like you will feel that.
Yes. So very worth doing the work. People like us can't do the work for you, but we have gone through years of doing our own work. We took the slow road. We had to figure it out for ourselves. We didn't have anybody write us a goddamn guidebook, but guess what? We are now the guidebooks.
Yep.
Tay is the guidebook. She does amazing work with trauma. Let me just tell you. So really quick for the people, how do they get a hold of you? How do they follow your work if they want to reach out to you?
So there are a couple of different ways that people can reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook at Desirable Phoenix LLC. You can also find me on Instagram at Desirable_Phoenix. And then of course, if you just want to, personally send me a message, you can, send me a message through Lavette on Facebook as well. Like really, like I'm working on, my book, which hopefully will be coming out next spring.
I saw the new cover idea for it.
I know.
I love where you're going with it now. I'm so excited.
So it's really just, there's so many things that's happening, and the fact that the book is going to be coming out, I'm revamping my program, and just really looking at how I can honestly start to help people. Like that right there, like that fills me up so much. I'm just like, you go through your regular daily life and you're like, oh, I'm doing this job and I'm doing that job, but this is what I live for. This is truly what I live for. And also, I forgot my blog, thehealingspark.wordpress.com. You can go on there and, actually get a lot of this content, energy healing, what you receive, what's taken away during a trauma, what you actually gain after starting your healing journey, my chakra journey. Like there's a lot of things that you actually get to read about. Awesome. So it's really just, it's an amazing process. I'm like super excited. Like 2020 kind of like threw us a curveball and I was like, fuck you 2020. Like,
but it gave us an opportunity to step up if we were ready to step up.
Right.
This is it.
It just gave you the opportunity. It was like, look, if you're ready, here it goes.
Exactly.
Let's do it. So I will drop all of those links in the description below for anybody who wants to reach out and get a hold of Tay or follow any of her work. I can tell you from personal experience, she's super personable. So if you literally just want to shoot her a message and say, hey, saw you on the podcast, just wondering what you think about this. Super approachable. Like, loves
Absolutely.
working with the
I
people.
welcome it
So
all.
don't be shy. Reach out to Tay. Get into her work. We love having her on with us, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Galactic Explorers.
Absolutely. Thank
It
you.
went over
Thank
way
you.
too fast. Way too fast. We could keep going for probably another 2 or 3 hours. You know what? We need to do like a special edition episode that's like one of those 2 or 3 hour fuckers where we just get drunk or something and then talk about
Oh,
you know what
snap.
I mean? You know what I'm saying? We're like, what's like Paul, like Joe Rogan's done them, like all kinds of people have done them. Anthony just like all these comedians and different people. It's like they get their, some of their favorite guests on that they have repeated, and they have like a special edition one where they just get together and just get drunk as fuck. And
I
they,
feel like that should be like a live YouTube special.
Right.
Like you guys should like invite all the people and just be like, yo, we're gonna be doing this YouTube collab. It's gonna be a live
Right.
event.
And we'll just have the bowl, and we'll just pull stuff from the bowl, and whatever comes out of the bowl, and we'll just like do, maybe 10, 20 minutes on it, however we go, and then just keep, just
That's
keep
a
that
good
interesting.
idea.
I think that would be a fantastic idea, actually.
You know what? Let me whip out yon Tinder special. This is our calendar, by the way, everybody. This is how legit we are right now. This is how I have to organize my life. We definitely have some space coming up in our December shows. So if you want to do it as kind of like a close,
like a holiday special.
Yeah, it's like almost we could do a drunk as fuck New Year's Eve special.
I won't be drunk, but I'll be
whatever,
feeling good.
Yeah.
Look, we can bring in the new year with a little bit more infos.
Yeah.
Look.
Well, really, because I mean, we got an opening for the end of December after Christmas, so that could be, if you want to do that, we could get you in.
It's a good idea.
And
that sounds awesome. Look, let me know. I'll be
we'll
there.
talk about it. We'll talk about it. But thank you guys so much for being with us for our episode of Galactic Explorers, where we talk about the energetics of sexuality and sex and trauma and getting through all that shit, talk about self-love, how important that is. So thank you for joining us. We love you. Subscribe, watch, share, link, all the good stuff. Go follow Tay, watch her stuff, or go check out her blog. Good. Check out her on our podcast. We've actually had her on talking about near-death experiences. So go check that one out. That one actually just dropped. Well, yeah, that one dropped last month. So check it out.